A happy Women's Day to all. March 8th is celebrated as Women's Day, International Women's Day. And the entire March is dedicated to women all over the world. Today we'll deal with the poem of Kamaladas, An Introduction. Kamaladas is a pioneer in the feminist movement in India. She is one of the most powerful voices who has, with brutal honesty, with unsettling honesty, talked about the feminine experience. She has explored in depth the feminine consciousness, the position of the female in in a journey through a patriarchal, conventional society as a woman comes into her own authentic self. Kamalada's poems can be called confessional. Most of her poems are confessional. This is an autobiographical poem. So let's begin. I don't know politics, but I know the names of those in power and can repeat them like days of week or names of months, beginning with Nehru. So here the poet says that she claims to be not political. She says, I am not political. She shows us that she knows the names of those who are in power, starting with Nehru. She knows it in the same way that she knows the names of the week or she knows the names of the month. That is, she has just imbibed it. It is part of her being. We can see here that Kamalada's personal life was what came into her stories and her poetry, but the microcosm of her personal life is set against the macrocosm of the colonial background India that was just independent. That was the background of her writings. So she knew all about politics in a way that a person would know about routine things, not that she was so interested in them. And we know that her mother, the renowned poet Balamani Amma, was also a very forceful voice in Indian literature. Her father was a journalist. So literature and politics was always a constant in her family background. I am Indian, very brown, born in Malabar. I speak three languages, write in two, dream in one. She describes herself by saying that I'm very brown, I'm very Indian. Here, her Indianness is brought into focus. She says that she speaks three languages, she can write in two languages, and she dreams in one. Don't write in English, they said. English is not your mother tongue. Why not leave me alone, critics, friends, visiting relatives? So here she shows us how a person can be criticized for speaking out in English. Now Kamala Das wants to make it clear that all our surroundings, the way we are brought up, what is our legacy, all of it makes us what we are. And she cannot deny the fact that she grew up in a post-colonial India, in India in which the people of the nation found the English language, the colonizers' language, as familiar as their own native tongue. And she says we cannot deny that experience. And those people who may mock her, who tell her this is not your mother tongue, I think many people have experienced the same. Why are you writing or talking in English? Why don't you speak out in your mother tongue? But here Kamala Das shows us that English too is part of her. Every one of you, why not let me speak in any language I like? The language I speak becomes mine. Its distortions, its queerness, all mine, mine alone. So here she claims, now you can see that in a way the poet is growing above the languages. She is transcending above the levels of language because she says, that the English I speak is my own. And in a way, we can say that the English that the colonizer at one point forced upon Indians, in a way, it is not the same English that India later on spoke, because we have used the language of the colonizer not to express the English experience. We have used English to express the native experience. That in itself makes the very language different. It no longer belongs to the colonizer. That is what Kamaladas is able to say. She has risen above it. She has taken English and made it her own. She says the distortions of this language, when we speak that native language by putting our own intonations, our own experiences in it, it becomes her language. She claims it, that too is mine. It is half English, half Indian, funny perhaps, but it is honest. It is as human as I am human. An Indian person would speak with an Indian accent. Every state has their own accent. We have our own experiences that would never ever occur in a foreign land. Only the language is foreign. And this language, too, with all the words, with all the sayings that has been injected to it, becomes our own. So she says, it is as human as I am human. It comes from my heart, it comes from my consciousness. Don't you see? It voices my joys, my longings, my hopes. And it is useful to me as cawing is to crows. So, this language, when she chooses to write in English or when she chooses to write in Malayalam, both these languages become her instrument to voice her longings, her hopes. So, she is now going into the speech that is the language of the human being. There is a language which is common to all human beings, and that is the language of their joy, their sorrow, their longings, their desires. So, all this is a language that is universal. It is like cawing is to the crow or roaring is to the lion. For the lion, roaring is its way of communicating, and for the crow, cawing is its way of communicating. It is, she says that language is that intrinsic to a human being. It is not something where even thought is required. It is the medium through which we show ourselves to the world. It is human speech, the speech of the mind that is here and not there, a mind that sees and hears and is aware. She now wants us to know that she is an animated woman, full of thoughts, full of desires, which she wishes to communicate to the world. She says it is here and not there. She says that her wishes or her story is right there in front of her. It is not further away from her. Here she is also showing us that another person cannot describe her feelings. It is her own. Not the deaf, blind speech of trees in the storm, or of monsoon clouds, or rain, or the incoherent mutterings of the blazing pyre. Here, the sound of the trees, the sound of the rain, all this is part of nature. These are things that happen in life without thought. These are natural phenomenon. And she says, no, my language is not like that. My language is my thought out emotions pouring forth from me. She shows us that she is a woman full of life. Here, the funeral pyre is used to indicate the funeral pyre is symbolic of death. And she says, my voice is not the muttering of the funeral pyre. The funeral pyre stands for dead thoughts, thoughts that are gone, that is redundant, the past. Here we can also take it that the conventional position of women is being questioned. Women have been taught to be subjugated, to be submissive, to not put forth their ideas, to be under the iron rule of the patriarchal system. So she says, it is not that blazing funeral pyre that you see, but it is a live woman who stands in front of you. I was child, and later they told me I grew. I grew tall, my limbs swelled, and one or two places sprouted hair. So here she says that I am an adult. I became an adult because my limbs grew. I became taller. I attained bodily hair. So these are all indicating that she has physically grown, but her mind is still naive and inexperienced. So again, this is Madhavikuti's very fierce way of telling the world that a young woman she is kept closeted and cloistered in such a fashion that she does not know the world around her. She is told that she is a grown up, but she is protected, or rather, she is closed away so that she does not know what is happening in the world around her. And at that point, she is suddenly told that she has grown up and she is pushed into marriage. When I asked for love, not knowing what else to ask, for he drew a youth of 16 into the bedroom and closed the door. So she is married. All of a sudden, she finds herself in the bedroom of a man. She says, he did not beat me, but my sad woman body felt so beaten. The weight of my breasts and womb crushed me. I shrank pitifully. So here Madhavikutty is actually telling us that the weight of her breasts and womb, the very organs that define her femininity, were making her feel burdened. On one hand, we can see that this young woman could even be finding fault with her body. It is this body that has betrayed her. It is this body that has proclaimed to the world around her that she is grown up, that she can be married. And here we see the lack of consent. Consent is the most important thing in a woman's life, but that consent is not taken from her. But she is forced into a state where she must share her mind, her body, without having consented to it. Moreover, we also are questioning the fact about her husband's sexuality too. Why was he not able to make her feel comfortable in her feminine self? Why is it that her body felt a burden to her? This is also something very important. She says that I was pulled into a room, but we see that he was not beating her, he did not hurt her, yet she was pitifully shrinking. So Madhavikutty is also making us conscious of the fact that for the feminine self, for the female to be most comfortable in her feminine self, the world around her must be conducive to that. Otherwise, she shrinks back. She is afraid to show her authentic feminine self. Sometimes she masquerades in the form of her masculine self, or she hides herself. Then I wore a shirt and my brother's trousers, cut my hair short, and ignored my womanliness. So here she is made to feel ashamed of her womanliness. In an effort to impress her husband, she has started dressing like a tomboy. She has started behaving like a young man. She is wearing her brother's trousers. She has chopped off her hair. Those symbols which were intrinsically feminine, she is feeling ashamed of it. And at the same time, we see that in her home, where she should be most safe, where she should be able to proclaim her femininity without a doubt, there she is having to resort to hide under the so called masculine self. And at the same time, the world around her is telling her, dress in saris, be a girl, be a wife, they said, be embroiderer, be cook, be a quarrel with servants, fit in, oh belong, cried the categorizers. So she tells us that the women around her, the men and women, the family, the extended family, the community, the society is telling her, fit in. They are categorizers. She calls them categorizers. They want her to do those things that are typical of a woman. You may quarrel with the servants. You may be a housewife, fight and gossip. These are the so called activities of a woman. Cook, do embroidery. If you do not like these so called feminine traits, then you don't fit in. Belong, cried the categorizers. Don't sit on walls or peep in through our lace draped windows. They're asking her, do not look through our lace draped windows. Here we see that Madhavi was putting forth to the world the feminine consciousness without settling for anything less than the truth. She was brutally expressing herself, and that was something society did not want. So they are telling her, do not peep in, do not find out the cracks in the walls. Be Ami or be Kamala, or better, still be Madhavi. So they would love her to be Madhavi. They would want her to keep to her name, the name that is given to her by her parents, and write in a language that is a native tongue, write of experiences that are delicate, that are fragile, that suits a woman. Choose a name, a role. Don't play pretending games. Don't play at schizophrenia or be a nympho. So, a woman who was talking about her experiences, who was ambitious, who was putting out herself there, her authentic self, would be called a nymphomaniac or a schizophrenic. She was called mentally imbalanced because society does not want to hear the truths, the uncomfortable truths. Now Madhavi says, I met a man, loved him, call him not by any name, he is every man. She now tells us that she has fallen in love with a man, she met a man, she loved him. She does not give any name to this man. By the simple fact of removing any name from this man, she is taking away the male agency here. She is becoming the person in the center. So we know that patriarchy has always featured man as the center and woman is the other revolving around him. Here Madhavi proudly puts herself in the center and she says, I met a man, I love the man. He is every man who wants a woman, just as I am every woman who seeks love. So here she says that he is symbolic of every man in the world who wants a woman to complete him, just as I am every woman who seeks love. So here she shows us the equality between men and women. Man and women are created equal. Their wants, their desires, their ambitions are the same. In him, the hungry haste of rivers. In me, the ocean's tireless waiting. So here she compares herself or a woman to the ocean that is symbolic of vastness, of fertility, of brimming with life. We know that the ocean is strong, it is brimming with life. And she calls the man the river with a hungry haste of a river. Man, it is symbolic in its sensual, sexual, as well as human level. And in most poems or most of literature, a man is described or compared to the sea, whereas a woman would be compared to the river. Because we know that the river has no course but to flow into the sea. The river may not change its course. And here, by commanding the man to be the river, she decides that his fate of completion is when he declares equality with a woman, when he comes forth to a woman and there is a truce there, when one part of the human species acknowledges that the other part is equally strong and equally needed for the survival of this world. That is when true love and true unity comes forth. Who are you? I ask each and every one. The answer is, it is I. Anywhere and everywhere, I see the one who calls himself I. So she asks this man, who are you? And the answer is, it is I. Everywhere and anywhere, the answer is, it is I. I see the one who calls himself I. In this world, he is tightly packed like the sword in its sheath. It is I who drink lonely, drinks at 12 midnight. In hotels of strange towns, it is I who laugh. It is I who make love and then feel shame. It is I who lie dying. So here Madhavikutty brings forth the term I to show all of humankind. Here the I stands for both men and women. And usually a woman is objectified. In the conventional patriarchal culture, a woman is always objectified. And by saying the letter I, she is actually emancipating women from the position of object and making her the subject. She becomes I, she becomes the subject, the one who chooses her destiny. And she says, it is I who lies dying. It is I who is drinking at 12 in the midnight. It is I who is going around town late at night. It is I who laugh, it is I who make love and then feel shame. It is I who lie dying. With a rattle in my throat, I am sinner, I am saint. So the woman in popular literature and popular history, religion, everywhere, a woman is asked to be either a saint or a sinner. Madhavikutty makes it clear that a woman is not Sita, nor is she Shurpanaka. She is not only Mary, nor is she Magdalene. She is both saint and sinner. Do not place her in a box or a category. Let her be human. Let the saint and the sinner dwell together inside her, because that is what makes her human. I am the beloved and the betrayed. I am both beloved. When she is loved, she becomes the beloved and she also becomes the betrayed. I have no joys that are not yours, no aches which are not yours. I too call myself I. So at the end of the stanza, we see how she is now no longer talking only about her own self. She is talking about all of womankind. And she says, I have no aches that you are not familiar with. She tells that to the world of men and women. She tells everyone, my longings are the same as yours. This is a powerful call for people to see a woman as intrinsically human with her own opinions. She does not need to fit into any particular category. She does not need to do those things which are prescribed for a woman. Let her follow her heart, her dreams, her authentic self can come forth. So this is written in free verse. Two literary devices used are enjambment, because like you can see in the last paragraph, it goes in a continuation. There is no full stop. And there is the repetition of the word I comes several times. Thank you. An introduction by Kamaladas. I don't know politics, but I know the names of those in power and can repeat them like days of week or names of months beginning with Nehru. I am Indian, very brown, born in Malabar. I speak three languages, write in two, dream in one. Don't write in English, they said. English is not your mother tongue. Why not leave me alone? Critics, friends, visiting cousins, every one of you. Why not let me speak in any language I like? The language I speak becomes mine. Its distortions, its queerness, all mine, mine alone. It is half English, half Indian. Funny perhaps, but it is honest. It is as human as I am human. Don't you see? It voices my joys, my longings, my hopes, and it is useful to me as cawing is to crows or roaring to the lions. It is human speech, the speech of the mind that is here and not there, a mind that sees and hears and is aware. Not the deaf blind speech of trees in storm, or of monsoon clouds, or of rain, or the incoherent mutterings of the blazing funeral pyre. I was child, and later they told me I grew, for I became tall. My limbs swelled, and one or two places sprouted hair. When I asked for love, not knowing what else to ask, for he drew a youth of 16 into the bedroom and closed the door. He did not beat me, but my sad woman body felt so beaten. The weight of my breasts and womb crushed me. I shrank pitifully. Then I wore a shirt and my brother's trousers, cut my hair short, and ignored my womanliness. Dress in saris, be girl, be wife, they said. Be embroiderer, be cook, be a quarreler with servants. Fit in, oh belong, cried the categorizers. Don't sit on walls or peep in through our lace draped windows. Be Amy or be Kamala, or better still, be Madhvikuti. It's time to choose a name, a role. Don't play pretending games. Don't play at schizophrenia or be a nympho. Don't cry embarrassingly loud when jilted in love. I met a man, loved him. Call him not by any name. He is every man who wants a woman, just as I am every woman who seeks love. In him, the hungry haste of rivers. In me, the ocean's tireless waiting. Who are you? I ask each and every one. The answer is, it is I. Anywhere and everywhere, I see the one who calls himself I. In this world, he is tightly packed like the sword in its sheath. It is I who drink lonely, drinks at 12, midnight, in hotels of strange towns. It is I who laugh. It is I who make love and then feel shame. It is I who lie dying with a rattle in my throat. I am sinner, I am saint, I am the beloved and the betrayed. I have no joys that are not yours, no aches which are not yours. I too call myself I.